Welcome to 10, everyone. 10 minutes. That's all you lazy marketing folks hopefully need to get to know a little bit more about interesting cases, news in the intersection of marketing and sustainability. And this episode, it's really something that I've been looking forward to because we're going to zoom in on packaging and edible packaging nonetheless. So I got Pierre Paslier, who is uh, co-founder, co-CEO of NotPla with us here today. Welcome, Pierre.
Thanks for having me.
And for those who don't know NotPla, it's basically edible seaweed, but it's so much more than that as well. On the website, Pierre and his colleagues says it's disappearing packaging. So basically, the David Copperfield, I guess, of packaging coming to us here. And no doubt about, I think in a time where most brands look at packaging as one of their more challenging issues in ESG, in the sustainability space, because it's something that consumers have a big focus on. Pierre, I don't know how you have time to talk to me because your phone should just be ringing all the time. So how are you doing, and what is NotPla up to at the moment?
Yeah, so now it's an exciting time because, as you say, like there's a lot of need for change, and I think there's more and more people who realize that they need to be part of the journey. So Notpla is at a stage where we're now like a team of 60 people. We've just passed the milestone of 10 million single-use plastics replaced with our solutions. So it's now kind of like at an industrial scale, and we're really excited to basically like roll out several new products in the coming kind of like couple of years that are targeting different applications. At the heart, it's about using natural materials like seaweed to replace synthetic materials like plastic, so that worst comes worst, if our packaging ends up in the wrong place, in the wrong time, nature is totally familiar with those materials. They've been around the environment for hundreds of millions of years, so we know we never create forever packaging. Whereas plastic, on the other hand, that has been around for 150 years max, which is nothing at the scale of kind of like this planet, is always going to mess up with the environment everywhere it ends up. So that's really where we try to kind of like swap out those fugitive plastics with something that nature knows.
And you know what, Pierre? I remember years ago on the early part of your journey, I judged the NotPla case, I think at DNAD or CAN, and I really loved it because one of the things that you guys obviously got famous for were these sort of edible water pouches made out of seaweed, which I absolutely loved. So one of the things I'm thinking is, as I said, this is a pain point for a lot of brands. It's a pretty no-brainer. It should be. Um, are these brands just too obsessed with talking about how they want to transition packaging because the solution is there? What's holding them back? Is it the price point? Aren't they willing to pay enough for the chains, or why aren't we seeing more of these quite common sense solutions out there? Because nature is an amazing place to get rid of your stuff. It's been working like that since the early days, right?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, like there's friction with innovation. There are like maybe like three main things that are holding back the potential of those solutions for now. I'm very kind of like optimistic that those things are only kind of like growing pains rather than like a forever challenge. But one of the first thing, as you say, is price. Like the reality is everyone is like benefiting from 100 years of hardcore R&D from all around the world on making plastic as efficient and as cheap to produce and to transfer around the world and use in all sorts of products. And yeah, I mean, like that, it's been optimized a lot. So today you can't expect a new category of materials to beat plastic with kind of like 100 years of head start. But it doesn't mean that it's always going to be that way. Like the first thing is that plastic is not really paying its true fair cost in kind of like the market. The gray kind of like cost that it leaves on society for hundreds of years in all of the impact on health, on biodiversity, on climate change, no one's really paying it. So it means that like every brand that uses plastic is basically benefiting from this kind of like discount that they are leaving the rest of kind of like future generations to pay, which is not really fair, but that's how the world works. But I think it's important to never lose that kind of like perspective that if you're using something that doesn't kind of like take into account the full externalities, you're basically just paying the deposit and someone is going to have to pay that mortgage forever.
Yeah, it's such yeah, I think it's such an important point. I think we see that, across other categories, whether it's, coffee or chocolate, the sort of hidden cost of that, and also obviously that oil in many places of the world are also being subsidized. So there are challenges there.
Okay. Yeah. I think the second thing is that we're not going to have kind of like the exact same properties as plastic with non-plastic materials. So you can't expect it to fit everywhere. So it's going to have to be like case by case, application per application. And it means that as a result, we have to be a little bit less lazy. I think today you can make the same PET bottle for kind of like a sweet beverage brand all around the world, whether you're using it in kind of like your office or a festival, or if it's in the supermarket, or if it's kind of like used kind of like on the go. All of these have the same format. It's very kind of like convenient, but it also creates kind of like a leveling up of the performances that are required for everything, which means that we use the most performant indestructible material in lots of places where we don't have to. And I think we need to be less lazy in our approach. We need to look at like what is appropriate for each application. And I think in this diversity, we're going to find lots of exciting solutions. You look at the world, like not every fruit is the same. Like every application, like specifically to this location, to this climate, to this type of kind of like sugar content, everything is customized. And I think our approach of like one size fits all has been very detrimental. It's created kind of like a kind of like overkill specs to match if you want to replace what works. And I think the last thing that really kind of like is hindering the kind of like switch to more natural solutions is the fact that there's a huge amount of greenwashing. So we're not really leaving any incentive for the people who actually solve the entirety of the problem to get the benefit from that. Today, you've got people claiming plant-based, plastic-free, without any sort of backing, and as a result, it means that no one really has any reason to go and solve it. And recently, the Dutch government did a market review on like takeaway food containers in the Netherlands, and they published their review. And like the review was of all the solutions they looked at that were claiming either to be plastic-free, plant-based, or anything like this, they all contain plastic except NotPla. We're literally the first and only solution that the Dutch government has found to not contain plastic for takeaway food containers in the Netherlands. That shows that there is this absolute lack of incentive because of marketeers not giving a chance of the next person that does the better technology to get any benefits from it. Well, I think, I mean, at the heart, the marketing industry is extremely good and I think enjoys telling powerful stories. And I think there's an incredible story to be told of the nature-based solutions that are going to replace these kind of like fossil fuel kind of like addiction that we have. So I think it should be taken as a bit of a challenge. How do we get kind of like the world to fall in love with this future that we could be enabling? And I think there's no better kind of like set of experts of kind of like craftsmanship that can come that outside of marketing. This is all on like the marketing kind of like teams of the world to make sure everyone is really kind of like switching on, because that's something that they desire, and I think that that's very possible.
I mean, it's super sad, and I think also it's a wake up call to our industry as well, because we are part of the problem in the way that we promote these products. I always felt shocked with the fact that the ones who do the right thing are the one who needs to wear the label and pay for the certification, while the one who actually does the damage are the one who doesn't have to pay anything and actually in that way reaps the benefits. So there's definitely systemic change that needs to happen. And the last thing I just want to talk to you about, because you touched on this a little bit, loss of diversity, microplastic, all these hidden costs. And one of the things that our industry is faced with as well, besides greenwashing as one of the key issues, is obviously the UN Secretary Antonio Guterres, who just before the big advertising festival in Cannes gave our little industry a wake up call and said, please stop your addiction towards oil. You did it with cigarettes. Get over it. What's your response to that rallying cry?
Well, I think, I mean, at the heart, the marketing industry is extremely good, and I think enjoys telling powerful stories. And I think there's an incredible story to be told of the nature-based solutions that are going to replace this kind of like fossil fuel kind of like addiction that we have. So I think it should be taken as a bit of a challenge. How do we get kind of like the world to fall in love with this future that we could be enabling? And I think there's no better kind of like set of experts of kind of like craftsmanship that can come that outside of marketing. This is all on like the marketing kind of like teams of the world to make sure everyone is really kind of like switching on, because that's something that they desire, and I think that that's very possible.
Pierre, what a hopeful message to leave our audience with here. There are three barriers right now. I think all of you in our dear audience, I'm sure that you can overcome them if you really want to turn vision into action. Do call Pierre; he'll pick up from NotPla. I love how you marketed the product. I love what you guys are doing. Keep pushing forward. Keep growing. It's what the world needs. So thank you for joining, Pierre, and to all of the rest of you. If you want to see more episodes of 10, because you're too lazy to listen in depth to these topics, go to YouTube /Thomas Costa for more content. Thank you so much, Pierre, and best of luck.
Thanks.